Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Bao Podcast. Today we have another dual guest episode for you, featuring Michael Lefeber and Ken Spranghers, co-founders of Kozo. Kozo designs and builds spaces that adapt to the people who buy them. Whenever something changes in their life, their house can change with them. Kozo's innovative construction method ensures that you can choose to adapt your home. A small starter home can grow into a fully-fledged family home and then even evolve into a care home. On top of this, their unique demountable connection system enables an easier way to recycle the different elements at the end of their life cycle. In the past, we have already worked with Kozo and we've seen up close what a great concept this is. So I'm very much looking forward to this episode. Let's jump right into it. Welcome, Michael. Welcome, Ken. How are you doing today?
Hello, Benjamin. Yeah, thanks for inviting us. We are doing well and we are glad to be here.
That's good to hear. Yeah, so we had some slight technical issues. We only have one working mic, for which my apologies, but we're going to make the best out of it, right? Yeah. Okay, so Ken, Michael, maybe we start as we usually do on the Bao Podcast at the very beginning. So where did the idea for Kozo originate from, and what was the motivation behind it? Maybe that we start right there.
Yeah, so Kozo originates from our mutual interest, in fact, in transformable construction methods. In the past we have been, let's say, always involved in projects from our studies on, where we studied, at least I studied, architecture, engineering architects at the Free University of Brussels. And there we got in touch with transformable construction methods. Then afterwards, I gained some interest in the architectural world by doing my internship at architecture firms, of which Bogdan and Van Broek, for example, at that time was one of the offices where I worked. And then afterwards, we found ourselves in a correspondence, and we started working in the event industry, where we actually, how do you say it? We made for the different organization. We actually did their built constructions, and we made sure that each time that we constructed something, that in the future they could, with the same pieces that we made, they could make different types of constructions, or can be facilities, bars, installations, and so on. And that's where the start of our way of circular thinking originated from.
Right, because Ken, you have not a background in construction per se, right?
No, that's not true. I have a background in civil engineering.
Okay.
And at that time, this is the time that I met Michael during my studies at VUB. Afterwards, I stayed a bit to teach and to do research on dynamics of constructions. But I was always busy with music and festivals and these nice things to do. And at a certain moment, Michael came with an idea. Okay, we have a project. Are you willing to work on it? We're gonna build a big stage with scaffolding in hexagonal shapes. Can you do the calculations? I said, of course, I have time. I'm doing a PhD. And this is the beginning of Kozo. That's the beginning of Kozo, and the first project was in Brussels, I think, Color Festival. This is where it started. Now we're, how many years later? 8 years later, building demountable houses, adaptable houses, based on a Kozo system, a system that we developed ourselves. Maybe I can tell you about it, the system.
Yeah, definitely, of course, very much interested and intrigued by that, but I think to take maybe or to focus a little bit more on how it originated. When you explain it, it kind of makes sense that if you look at the festival world, they use the stages more than once, right? So in that environment, reusability of big, complex structures is already commonplace. No?
Yes, these are the requirements if you make a design, if you produce it, if you build it, and have to rebuild it. So demountability, speed, reversible connections, it has to fit in the trailer, everything has to be taken into account.
Yeah, and then secondly, also creating a unique identity each time, and that's with Kozo. We don't want to create always the same houses. We want to use the same components, but build different shapes. And this can go from different typologies, small annexes to fully-fledged homes, but also different types of roofs, gable roof, pitched roofs, flat roofs. But we want to keep the architecture interesting and each time different, not only by stacking blocks or build big volumes on each other, but more by generative architecture, which uses all like mechano-wise pieces that are produced in industrial environments, so they are very accurate, robust, and each time they can each time we produce them, we know that the future application is ensured.
Right. So is it the same, like, does it happen in the same way in the event space? Like, because a stage always looks different, like, visually it's very diverse in these festival scenes, but on the back end or design wise, does it always exist from the same couple of components that you can reconfigure in a different way?
Yeah. If you look at scaffolding, which is broadly used in events, of course, it's similar, and it has the capacity with a small amount of pieces to create many different applications. So in a way, that was our first interest. But if you see then in reuse or in component-based designs, then you can actually find also modules or pieces in the industry that you have. You can borrow them from a certain industry, like we did in the beginning with making scaffolding and pallets and combining them, finding right measurements, correspondences, and then after the event, it was just given back to its local industry, maybe a local supplier that had some pallets, and we gave them actually back. So it's also thinking about how can we do it within the means of these organizations, which sometimes don't have storage space, and how can you create it, and then add some pieces that are unique to it, but which can then be reused in the next event.
Right, and then when did you make the switch from like the event space? Like, how long did you do that, and are you still doing that? Is that like a thing that's still going on?
So maybe during the past years we did several projects on events, but there were some particular projects about housing. We did like a camping site in Marseille to give housing accommodations for people during the summer for 5 months. And we did like an urban camping module, a pod where people could sleep over for a night, 2 nights in the center of Paris. And it gave us some ideas.
The center of Paris?
Yeah, the center.
Whoa, that's really cool.
Okay. It was really nice. I think it was with the Yes We Camp organization. So these projects, they were event projects, but already in the direction of housing and accommodation. Now, okay, we got the COVID period, and this was really bad for the business. But we had these ideas already designed, so we used that moment to switch over to think about, okay, how can we go to this more sustainable and business-wise solutions for our company to go to housing technology. So this is the moment when we started to working on Kozo and Kozo housing.
Okay, and the idea behind Kozo housing started with, from the very beginning, we want to make houses that can be dismantled and the materials can be used somewhere else, or it can be adjusted along the way. Like, what was the idea from the beginning?
Yeah,
from the start.
Yeah, well, also to add to it, I think the elements that we use now to make the houses are standardized elements. We can mass produce them, in fact, and they can also be used in the events. So it's interesting that there is this connection, and we will still be a possible supplier or in the form of building plans for events also, because then we use those pieces in a short cycle before putting them in a longer cycle in a house for several years. So this is kind of interesting because in a way then these materials are more used in polyvalent applications.
Okay. And then the switch, so then you started around COVID with the idea of let's build homes.
Yeah, homes. Because, of course, that's what we actually started from with our studies. But also, I think in the past, for example, my father, when I was young, he was stuck in this perpetual renovation of the upper floors of our house to create extra bedrooms. The typical thing that you will always encounter, because many people say, yeah, but the house will always stay the same. But yeah, if you have children, for example, and you never know what is to come, maybe a change of life, and those ideas, were already there from a young age. And then for me, there was a pivotal moment when we visited with our school, we visited Rome, and we saw all these big, architectural buildings that lasted there already for ages. And in a way, we were always, I think, interested in housing, and for me, then architecture in particular. So it was to come, but the only thing that kept us from doing it earlier, I think, is our way of life also, and also the fact that we actually gained a lot of insight in constructing fast on-site in specific conditions by doing it at events. And then we decided to put those insights in practice for what we actually wanted to do, I think.
Okay, and then how do you start? Like, what's the first step you took when you wanted to go from the event to the construction? Like the real, like, except for the event pots and the 2 day stay in Paris, that type of project. How did you start to go into the permanent residential market? What's the first step you took?
Yeah, one of the first steps is to make your idea realistic. So we started designing, calculating, making examples, testing some parts in the lab, in the workshop, but also writing a whole business plan and to find people who believe in your story and to get started. The idea is actually, you have to get all picture and start making it real. This is the first thing you do.
And did you do it all on yourself, or did you work with someone who helped you in the design process?
Yeah, so we did first a development project with Vlaio, and there we had a partner called Studio Dot who helped us in certain development parts, but also marketing wise. We got in touch with you guys in that period in order to also keep all those principles ensured in the interior applications and the fixed furniture. Not only the shell, the waterproof, wind-tight proof shell that we actually focus on, but also all the extras in it. And that's how we got in a short time all our building blocks how we wanted them. But also next to that, we're sure that we had a way of communicating with possible users or possible clients, project developers of holiday parks. Show ourselves what we stand for, and also learn about how these businesses work. Not only on an academic way, but then also on a practical solution.
Maybe I can add to that. It's interesting how we started to develop the first house, because originally in the beginning of the project, the bearing frame, the framing was made with scaffoldings. So we started.
Really?
With some designs based on scaffoldings.
Metal scaffolds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, scaffoldings you use for renovations, to build stages. But at a certain moment, it was possible to build a house, flooring, walls, roofs, with the same components, but it took a lot of material, steel. So at a certain moment, we had to make a choice. Are we going to develop our own system, which is more material efficiency? It turned out this is the right choice. So now we have our own system with knots and beams, which is actually a timber frame which has the bearing capacity of the houses. In such a way it's demountable and reversible. You can see it as a wooden mechano system, which is constructed by parts which are made by machines, CNC machines.
And that's really that's the biggest technological breakthrough that you had in the system, right? The fact that you built in wood, a material that's more environmentally friendly, that's getting used more and more. But today, the way I understand it, when you build in wood, whether it's CLT or wooden frames, it always gets nailed together, right? And with your solution, you can connect it and you can deconnect it very easily. That's the biggest technological breakthrough, right?
Yeah, so one of the most important things is we have a skeleton, a frame, which bears the construction. And onto that we use panels which are insulated. All the items, all the parts are wood, so it's very good for your CO2. But the connections are with bolts, so it's irreversible. So you can really take a panel and demount it from the house. Sorry.
Okay.
So this is reversible, and this makes it circular. So.
Yeah, and I also think that it's mentionable that actually the core of the technology is a node that we developed in order to connect those structural pieces together, create that auto-stable, robust grid in which we connect those panels, in fact. And there is a separation between shell, structure, and techniques in order to access all of those different big building parts separately without having to demolish other parts of the building. And that's what we see nowadays a lot, that there is many companies that have circular solutions, but there are not that many that really focus on the reuse part without having to demolish certain pieces of the building. You can add an entire volume to it or take that volume away. But in order to, for example, make a simple extra room or a simple new window opening, that can be really easily done, and maybe in the future also by other contractors, and doesn't always have to be coming from us, for example. So the future application also has to be ensured, and in a way that, so we developed all of this having in mind that it should be easily understandable, not like rocket science, but that it's sure that in the future you gain more value from your building by being able to reuse the parts that are in it, maybe sell some of them. We will also try to be there to buy them then, and then get some new ones, or create a circular economy with other people where you can sell those pieces to or buy those pieces from, and then see in the future how we really get new homes constructed with pieces of other homes or old homes which are compatible to each other, because all of our pieces are made having a form and size measurement system in place, which, of course, is good for the production because you have repetition, which is good for the labor conditions and the social working places, for example, because those handlings can be done in a way that it's produced in series and has repetitive tasks in it. But that's also keeping it simple in a way, in order that the future users get that value back from in which they invest now.
Yeah, so in theory, you could build a Kozo home, and it consists out of a structure, and then there are the utilities in it, which can be and has been a SAM in the past, right? Which basically is the same philosophy, but then for all the utilities of the home. And then when the home is built and you use it, and after 20 years you want to build something else, or you want to demount the home, you can completely decouple the entire structure, sell it back to you, or use it for another building. Nothing goes to waste. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the idea. There is nothing going to waste. So the first loop is to put your parts in another Kozo building. The second loop is to demount it to monomaterials, and the third loop is to go back to recycling your wood. So these are the three loops we use that you talk about in circularity.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So the idea also is we have these knots and beams. The beams are from wood and the knots are from steel. So steel, it's an interesting material, but we use it only on the places where it's needed. So the efficiency is quite high. So we have, let's say, 98% wood and 2% of steel in the building, if we talk about the frame with the shell.
Are you unique in this approach? Like, are there people who also offer this?
For the moment, I think the way how we do it, there are not so many companies, but maybe Michael knows about it.
Of course, there are always examples, I guess. That's normal. We are not the first ones. We don't want to be the first ones. We just want to make sure that these principles are put into practice. Of course, in the market now, if you look at the wood market in Belgium, you have a lot of companies that focus on automation of their production processes. So let's say 50% of the current companies that have invested in automation of production of building components in wood, they have more than 80% of the total amount of projects that are built in wood in Belgium. So that's for us is a good indicator that we in order to comply with these other companies, that we also have to make sure that we invest in more automation of all the processes that are behind it, and I think that the market is there is a big stretch still on it, and definitely in our type of construction, because you have a lot of prefabricated wooden companies that work with prefabricated pieces, mostly in wood skeleton houses, but those are just pieces that are available in the market, and that are constructed together or in fully pieces of big walls, for example, but none of them really make sure that you can, for example, change a window opening without having to cut some parts of it and demolish pieces. And then secondly, what you also see a lot, where the interest in prefabricated homes also is big, is the full volumes, of course, which are made in one unity, and then you can couple of units together, and they are made also off-site, of course. And
maybe I can add to that the way of reversibility, which is incorporated in the building. We don't see a lot of other companies working on that, for the system we developed, it's now patent pending. So for the moment, we are how we designed it, and the grid and how the node is constructed is this for the moment the first. It's a unique solution for the moment. So
that's great.
Yeah.
All right. So sometimes we hop from the timeline from the beginning, and now we already to the technical details. But maybe let's take a step back towards the Corona time period, which is where you started the development. You were explaining you set up a design partnership with Studio Dot. You met us. We started working on the houses, and then how did it go from there? Like, how did it proceed further on?
Yeah, one of the following steps is actually to make a prototype. And the first thing is the prototyping, making all these ideas on your 3D environment. But from that on, you start making solutions in the workshops, trying some stuff, and do some test runs. We did several loops also together with Studio Dot, and at a certain moment you have to take the decision, okay, we have this solution, let's go from that. What we have done is finished, now we go the next steps. So actually it's a quite interesting process.
So the end of the research, let's say, was the pilot project that we then did together also with you guys in Olen. Which
this was last year, right?
Yeah, we started building in December. We built in the rough construction work, let's say, water wind tide, in 5 days for a holiday home type, which is was 60 square meter plus then a mezzanine, and with there we did all the kinds of corners, or really all the geometrical possible shapes that you need to have in order to make all those different types of typologies, we then in a very short time were able to show how it works and validate our initial concepts that we had in mind.
So that was done around April last year, right? March, April?
Yeah, there was always some little things here and there to oversee, but it was done in a very short time. Look at the part that is really about the system and also the interior. I guess you guys in 10 working days or even less, you did the interior and we did the shell in 5 days on, and then you have all the different kinds of possible finishings, of course, which then are related to the specific type of material you use. So for slates, it takes a little bit more time to do the roof finishings, for example. And from there on, we're actually looking to the future now. And the first thing that is very important is to gain market traction, really do projects, realize many different houses, and therefore we are open for project developers, for neighborhoods that want to develop a couple of family houses, or even holiday parks. Holiday parks, I think, is a very interesting application also, because it, in those parks you have a lot that they actually are always renewing certain parts of the park. So by sometimes, demolishing and rebuilding. So it's a continuous process, a park like that. And we want to show them, like, look, in those steps of renewal, you can generate new shapes and new trend-related modules, but with using what you already have, and gain some environmental impact and also economical benefits with it. And for the first project, I think now you can explain.
Yeah, for today we can start on a new project, which we already submitted 1.5 years ago. But today we...
For the building permit, you mean?
Yeah, the building permit. Okay, it's a project with 11 houses, more or less 210 square meter per house. It's quite big. It's a new site close to Terbuy, inside Terbuy area, on a nice hill with nice views. But this is, as we know, one of the first circular projects in these areas, and where we can start now with a first model home together with Espace, which is the developer. I'm really excited to go start it and really to start building it.
I can imagine. And maybe something also to emphasize to the audience, if they wouldn't have seen it yet, I think something that also should be highlighted is the design aspect of your buildings. When they go on your website, we also have some pictures on our website. If they go and look at the project that we did together, we have done 6 modular homes, if you can categorize this under the modular category, right? Or prefabricated homes. I think the ones that you made, it looks spectacular, right? It looks very different from what someone thinks about when they think about a modular or prefabricated home. Definitely when you say that it's also demountable, like you wouldn't say it. It looks like something out of a design magazine. Maybe I'm talking our own book now, but I do think that's something that should be highlighted in the aspect of the product.
Yeah, you're right. If you look at it, you don't see the inside, which is very interesting because the demountability, it's just a hidden part of it, an extra asset, and we really tried to make the designs as pure as possible. And I can give the mic to Michael for that to emphasize some stuff about that.
Yeah, I think we both have a sort of preferability for architecture that is also nice. I think everybody has that a bit. Of course, everything needs to be doable within the needs of a project. But the architecture for us was important to keep it attractive or polyvalent, let's say. So different possibilities should not the system shouldn't prevent those types of housing. Of course, you don't see it, as Ken says, but that's also maybe a good thing sometimes. However, if you just demount one panel, you see how it is done on the depth of the shell. And I think you also need to take into account there's many building regulations. So that polyvalent use or different types of roofs are really important also in order to make in the future many applications possible. Because we, on a longer scale, I think we also want to develop tools for architects in order to design with this form and measurement system. And so I think for them it's also very important that they have flexibility in their design and that they're not in a rigid system where they cannot go anywhere without bouncing into the borders of that system. So we want to keep it quite open. And then in the future, maybe there's other contractors that can broaden the application of this system and also build with the pieces themselves. Because in Belgium we have a lot of independent, smaller companies that might do the switch in the future to circular construction. And now they have within their means they are building with stone mostly, but they have limited storage spaces or machine parks in order to build those houses. But maybe in the future we can provide them with the necessary tools to also make the switch to a circular economy.
Yeah, I think what you explain is very recognizable for us as well. Like you want to offer the architect and the client as much freedom as possible to make their design in the best way they deem. Because style and it's subjective, right? You want to give them as much freedom to make the thing that they want to make, which gives them the best experience. But there's always a balance between offering freedom and having it still be able to be designed in a very cost-efficient way, in an automated way, in a prefabricated way. So that's something that it's always a balance we need to keep in our system. I don't know if that sounds familiar to you as well.
Yeah, this is really familiar. The Kozo system, let's say, if you look on the other side, you have the brick, and on the other side you have like the really custom work. The Kozo system size is like a panel. A panel of 1 meter 20, let's say, to 3 meters is a panel. This is the degree of freedom you have, or a half of the measure. So, this is where you can start working on your combining blocks and parts to your dream house, let's say.
Because this is something that would be great in a configurator type of thing. Do you already have something like this? Is that something that's gonna come up?
So for the moment, we don't have a configurator, let's say. I think in the future, if you take a long future, it would be really nice that this system is like common knowledge, that people can just adapt it, use it, and build their own house with it. But I think this is for the further future.
Mm-hmm.
A configurator like you guys have, I think it's interesting. We have to take into account like the stability of the structure, which is sometimes a little bit more difficult. But I think it's possible, especially with all the 3D tools, the BIM tools we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we always have to see which kind of application it is. A configurator could be an option. Sometimes it's good, a configurator, for finishings, that you can see different kinds of materials in use. What I also think could be an interesting thing is that we see how we can develop a software that actually tracks all the components that are in the built environment, also or even for project developers, holiday parks, for example, that they have a sort of a patrimonium of pieces, and that they are always able to reconfigure and then have there maybe a software behind that calculates what is the best thing you should now switch to gain more capacity in that park, for example, and less in that park. How is the perfect way of demounting certain pieces that you can have more modules there from 6 persons or change them to 8 persons, because that's the trend right now within a time span. Something that calculates all of that in a software. That I think those tools are more related to our work, because if you look at configurators, that's more like business to consumer, I think. If you have a project going on for 10, 20 houses for a project developer, I don't think you're going to use a configurator at that point. I think it's more focused on business to consumer, but that it can be a tool for a project developer then at that point.
Okay, I saw recently the first home that we did together in Ole. Did I read it correctly that you can rent it now? Is it on Airbnb? No?
Yeah, it's I think from next month, February, it will be possible to go for a weekend there, to rent it and to enjoy it, to see how it's there, to live in it, and to enjoy the neighborhood, the nature there.
Awesome.
It's really nice.
You're gonna put it on a platform like Airbnb?
I think it will be on Airbnb and Natuurhuisje,
Okay.
probably. We will
Awesome.
put it on our website where you can do the bookings.
When you put it live, definitely let me know. We will also share it.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, guys. Maybe let's see. So now we have arrived at the current day, right? Is there anything like you want to share to the audience who maybe got inspired by our story, or like what are the biggest learnings maybe that you gained through the last couple of years of doing this? Is there something you wanna leave for the audience before we maybe shift to some more like lighter questions that we always end the podcast with?
Yeah, it's I'll just say one learning from my side, because there's many, and it's always difficult to name one in the end. But one that I have gone through the years is you can always find solutions to problems and have a perfectly fitting option for the people. But if the end user doesn't want to adopt this solution, then your raison d'être as a company is rather limited. So it's always very important to take into account the adaptation process and transition phase also that you have to go through.
Yeah, for me, I think adaptation is the word that I learned. I felt it. Not only your company has to be adaptive, not only your system, but also yourself, your employees. You have to adapt very fast.
Yes. Yeah, especially when you're in such a small organization, like you're wearing 5 different caps at the same time, to say it like that. I recognize what you say. And you need to sell, and you need to be able to design something, and you need to be able to build it, and you can't be afraid to get your hands dirty, and it's a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
All right. Then maybe we're gonna switch, as I mentioned, to some more lighter questions. This is something that we are in the habit of doing here at the Bao Podcast. So if you could have a drink with anybody, dead or alive, that's one of these questions that we usually ask. Who would it be? Does someone come to mind, and why?
I will start.
Okay.
Maybe I want to have a chat with 2 guys. It will be Einstein and David Gilmour. Let's say to talk about music and galaxies and the dark side of the moon. I think it would be very interesting.
Who's David Gilmour? Is he from Pink Floyd?
Yeah,
Is
guitar player of Pink Floyd.
Okay. He died already?
No, he's alive. So I have a dead one and a live one.
All right. Awesome. Michael, what about you?
You call that light questions?
Yeah,
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Non-construction related questions. So more fun ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about it, and but my answer is constructed related though. But I saw recently a sort of an interview or a documentary about Lode Janssens, which is an architect that actually did a an experiment where he lived for 10 years with his family in a balloon house, which is a transparent, inflatable, tensile construction, and with different modules built into it. And I saw it and I found it very interesting. Just also, and I would like to ask him like how it was to live in that totally different way, very light also in a way, because it's it can be done in one day, your house, if the balloon breaks, for example. And then what his experience was with having all the reactions of people to his experiments, and I would like to know, because it's so changing. It's a totally thing that you don't imagine. How he coped with all the reactions he had on it.
It's an inflatable house, a transparent inflatable house. And where was it?
It was in Belgium.
In the forest somewhere.
In years, I don't know. I think it was maybe 70s or 80s. It's been a while that it was the project. It was an experiment, and it was actually a balloon that was inflated with a sort of plastic fabric. And next to the balloon, he had a tensile tent in order to provide shade and privacy, I guess. And then he had some modules into it, which were sprayed with a sort of foam to insulate them, and the nature was just in his house. So you would have the kitchen, and he was just sitting next to plants. The ground, the terrain just continued through the house, and then you have to take into account the light, of course. You stand up with the light of sun, but you also have to provide shade. I like this kind of experiments.
Yeah, we will put it in the show notes if people are intrigued, which I am. So maybe other people will be as well. Okay, let's see. Did you guys read any great books that you really want to advise our audience on to read? No?
I don't read a lot.
Okay. Michael?
One book maybe that found interesting was the Why We Sleep from Matthew Walker. I don't know if you know it, but
I read it. Yeah.
You read it also, yeah. If you think of the fact that sleep is 1/3 of your life, if you can have some small tactics to make that 1/3 a little bit better, then it has a huge impact. So that was one of the reasons why I chose this, and I think it can gain some insights in the way your sleeping patterns work, and that it also provides some tools to make sure that you gain the most out of your daytime, your efficiency.
I was so surprised when I read that book about. Yeah, we don't know everything yet about sleep. We actually don't know a lot, but I had no idea how important it was for your health. And I think because of that book, and not only because of that book, but I do think that book really started like a switch in people's mindset of sleep or something we need to do, and let's minimize it, and it's to no, treasure it, and make it a quality thing and take your time for it, because if you do that, you will enable everything else during your day. So for me it was also quite an important one. Maybe a final one, a new one that we introduced since this podcast, and now I see Ken getting already a little bit more excited. What's the best purchase you've done in the last year under €100?
I'm gonna talk about sleeping.
Okay.
I bought a beefy bag.
Okay.
You know what's a beefy bag?
I have
it's
no
actually
idea.
a sleeve for your sleeping bag if you go outdoor.
Yes, I do know what this is. Yeah.
It will give you a better state of sleeping during cold nights, rainy nights. So it's perfectly waterproof, windproof. So really nice to go open air camping in the woods. This will make your night.
Awesome. And
Good advice for you.
It's a brand, beefy bag?
No, it's just, you have different brands. It's a sleeve, actually.
Okay.
Which you take camping and...
You can buy it in Decathlon, for example.
For example.
Oh, awesome. Michael, anything that comes to mind?
Not really. All the things I buy are under €100. That's not true either. But no, I think it was maybe something that I was looking for a long time. Was a good theater show, and I did a show in Montes recently. Was called Blood, actually, by Lazarus and another person or company. Company.
And where does it play?
It was in Montes, but there are...
What's Montes?
Montes is the theater in Antwerp. It's one of the theaters in Antwerp, but I liked it a lot because I really was searching for not too experimental things, because I have the feeling that you find that more easily, but like a good story, like just a real theater toneel show with a good story and a good storyline, and then laughing all the time, like also like for the public, and that was in
it's funny, like
good person.
I see. I'm also from the Kempen, right? Which you can hear on my Kemplish, as you could call it. But we don't have a tradition of theater in the Kempen, right? Not at all. But in Antwerp, it's a big, like, it's a tradition. And I'm always surprised when I cycle through Antwerp and I see these posters of like the People's Theater, that it's still going. I think it's kind of nice. I've never been. Maybe it's something that I should try.
Yeah, I can definitely advise.
Okay. Guys, I think we are coming to a close. Is there anything else you would like to say to the listener about Kozo, about yourselves? Maybe where can they find you, or if they are intrigued, how can they best reach you?
Yeah. So first of all, we have a website, of course. That's www.kozo with a K, Kozo.co. You will find that possibly in the credits also.
Yeah, it's in the show notes.
Sure. And then you can always send us an email at info@kozo.co, and we can have a chat. Definitely, everybody that has a certain idea or a project in mind, or even to have a chat about what we just talked about. Yeah, we're there. We also have our pilot project house, which you can visit. So if you have some interest in that, or even to spend the night there, that's the same address. Just give us a mail, and we'll get back to you.
Awesome. Then I think that's a wrap for our very first edition. Maybe in a couple of years we can do a second one. Unless Ken, you still wanted to say something?
No. Gonna follow you on that. We hope for the next one to do together, and we really want to thank you to invite us, to make it possible to bring our story. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I am glad for the collaboration and the realizations we've already done together, and I hope many can come, because I think the compatibility between what we do and what you do, I hope that also came through in the episode. There's, with both systems, actually a very similar philosophy behind it. So I think every project that we can do together is a project that's better for the environment. So and also a beautiful one, which is good for people. So thank you very much for being here, and then maybe we do a second edition in a couple of years. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Bao Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you're interested in Bao living in our Smart Adaptable Module, or SAM, go check out our website baoliving.com. If you want to stay up to date, you can best subscribe to our monthly newsletter on our website, or follow us on all social media platforms where we're named @BaoLiving.